Right now, young voters seem to be the biggest problem for Biden's campaign, which is tough because compared to him, everyone is a young voter. You know, so that's the problem.
An age joke. How edgy can you guys be? Yeah, Joe's got a problem with young voters. He's busy sniffing them. Well, welcome to it. Welcome to Wednesday on the Chris Plant Show. December 27th. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. There is breaking news this morning as the Michigan Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to try and kick Donald Trump off the ballot. And I think that's a good sign for Donald Trump and his team. We can't wait for the Supreme Court to follow suit and take care of business. We just don't know when that's going to happen. The sooner it happens, the better, obviously, for Mr. Trump and his campaign, and I think ultimately for America, because this does seem like we're descending into a Putin-like political persecution mode. Vladimir Putin has not directly, not publicly ordered it, but it looks like at least a dozen people who wanted to run for president in the upcoming Russian election, well, they're not allowed on the ballots. And something might have something to do with the fact that I think it's about a 78-page application that you have to fill out just to be considered a candidate. And if you get one thing wrong, your application gets booted. So it does feel like what this DOJ is trying to do is rather Soviet-like in its persecution or blocking of potential opposition to anyone. I still cannot get over the fact that at this point in time, less than 314 days away from Election Day, that the Democrats will not commit to debating the Republican candidate just before the election. Unheard of. And there can only be one reason, and that is that your candidate is cognitively not capable of talking, which we've seen. We have myriad clips that'll show you that. I'll keep ranting about that as we continue on. Speaking of election candidates, and in the GOP category, Ron DeSantis apparently, while his super PACs are abandoning him or slowing down their spending on advertising in Iowa and New Hampshire, he's saying that he's taking a different tactic. He's betting on door knocking in Iowa. I don't know if that's the best idea, sir. I know you went to all 99 counties, and I just wonder what the people of Florida feel like. I wonder what the people of Florida are feeling like with their governor spending more time in Iowa. I understand this is what politicians do, but it always bothers me that you've been hired to do one job, and you're out most days trying to get another job. Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign reportedly pulling back TV advertising in Iowa as well. That may be because he doesn't have the money. We don't know. And Chris Matthews, who we played yesterday, we might have to get into what Chris Matthews is saying. It seems like they dragged him out of a nap. I watched the videos of Chris Matthews, and his hair is going about 11 different directions. And he's like that curmudgeonly old guy commenting. And someone would say, well, he's always been that curmudgeonly old guy. Well, no, he's now the curmudgeonly older guy. But he's saying some crazy stuff, so we'll have to get to that. And I was talking earlier about Canada and how the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is making sure that his country is the wokest country on the planet. He's making certain that they're going to have tampons in men's rooms in the Canadian Parliament buildings at the direction of the Prime Minister. And you know he's going to be doing that for buildings around the country. It's not just going to be the Parliament building. It's soon going to be sliding down that slippery slope. But here's the thing that should scare the heck out of Canadians. This is what Trudeau said recently in an interview. Seriously, buckle up, Canada.
When my dad was my age, he still had 12 years of prime ministering ahead of him.
12 years of prime ministering. Did he just create a new word? He had 12 years of prime ministering ahead of him. Canada, you do have a choice. You do get to vote. Is it just that you think this is the best you can do? That's got to be a scary thought. We will get into what's going on in New York City, too. Before that, Sue is calling from Damascus, Maryland, joining the Chris Plant Show. Hello, Sue. Welcome to the program.
Oh, and thank you for taking my call. I don't think you should focus on Trudeau with this issue because here in Montgomery County, for your listeners that don't know the area, we're contiguous with the nation's capital, and we're very progressive. We call the place Moco Loco. And Will Jawando, who is one of our councilmen, has introduced a bill that there must be feminine hygiene products, tampons, pads, and they must be provided by the owner of the establishment for free in both the men's room and the ladies' room. And this is going on right now next to the nation's capital. So it's not just Canadians that have lost their marbles. It's Americans right here next to the nation's capital.
Well, Sue, you know that the woke mind virus, as Elon Musk likes to call it, is contagious. So as you have used the word contiguously correctly, and I salute you for that. It's a good SAT word for this hour. That reality of the woke mind virus crossing the river and getting to you, it's not a surprise to me. But here's my question, because I don't think this will hold up in court. I really don't think that a business can be forced, and someone's got to have the money to fight it, obviously, if this goes through. Are they talking about forcing private businesses? Let's say you own a restaurant and you've got men's rooms and women's rooms. They're saying that in the men's rooms, the owners of that establishment have to provide feminine hygiene products at no cost to anyone who shops there or eats there?
Yes, and that's because there are people in the world, because the world is so crazy, there are biological women who identify as men. So when they go into the men's room, they have to have access to their feminine hygiene products. And it has to be provided by the owner of the establishment. It has to be provided for free, or it's how they're going to get an operating license, a business license here in Maryland. Now, Will Jawando, the sponsor of this bill, has higher political aspirations. He wanted to run for Senate, and he ran the numbers and realized he's not going to be able to win there. So he may run for Congress, but this is a political ploy so that you can have biological women have access to menstrual products when they go into a men's room.
Now, here's the reality. If we are now getting to a point where a government can force a business to provide free products to people who come in, and they have to give it, this truly is communism. This is ordering people to provide health care, essentially. I know it's hygiene, but it's a part of health care. If they're going to order this, I don't see this standing up in any reasonable court. But obviously, the most important thing is that local people need to be aware of the insanity. And if this is happening in any other community around the country that can hear the Chris Plant Show, you got to vote these people out. They can't be allowed to come in and say, well, it is the job of the government to provide feminine hygiene products. Because, technically, if you provide it for biological women, then you do have to provide it for biological men. Otherwise, you're being biased and you're being discriminatory, and that's unfair. And we can't have that happen in a nation afflicted with the woke mind virus. Sue, that's crazy. I hope you guys get your stuff together and get better elected officials. But someone's got to challenge that in court if it passes. Keep us posted on that, if you will.
All right.
Thank you. Have a Merry post-Christmas, happy second day of Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year. It's Mike Opelka. Thank you for being here. So many things we have to get to today. That's astounding to me that a community would allow its governing body to force businesses to provide these products free. But then I guess I can believe this because California is getting ready to have law take effect that is forcing restaurants, fast food restaurants, to pay a $20 an hour minimum wage. It's going into effect. And this falls into the FAFO category. If you're familiar with FAFO, you know what I'm talking about. So California forcing fast food restaurants to pay employees a wage of no less than $20 an hour. Well, now we're seeing the side effects of that as Pizza Hut in California has just decided they can't afford to pay delivery drivers $20 an hour. And if you work it out, if you're a delivery driver, that's not an easy job. Not an easy job taking pizza to people who've probably been partying. I'm sure about half of the people who order pizza might have had a couple of adult beverages. You're counting on tips. And now you're forced to pay that person who deals with unruly customers, people who are sometimes angry. You got to go out in the rain, the snow, the dark of night. Sometimes there are people who want to rob the pizza delivery owners. And if the restaurant can't afford to pay them $20 an hour, they're going to rely on tips. Well, now the government in California has mandated it, and these California Pizza Hut owners say we can't afford it. So we're firing all the delivery drivers. So what's that going to do? Is that going to create now a new marketplace for Uber Eats or DoorDash or whomever? And does that cut into the profits? This is government sticking its nose where it doesn't belong. This is government getting inside the private market and obviously tweaking the private market, which will ultimately ruin it. But this is part of the FAFO. You decide that you're going to engineer it. Remember, $20 an hour? $20 an hour times 2080. That's 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. That's 2080. That's $40,000 for a pizza delivery driver. And I'm sure in California, they're also going to be asked to pay for additional benefits as well. It's unsustainable. That's why the free market needs to lead in all of these areas. There's more. I've got more on that coming up because there's more free market news. But California, $20 an hour for pizza delivery drivers. It's nonsense. And now Pizza Hut planted its foot and said, no mas. You want to join the conversation? You're welcome to. We have so much more to get to. Madness out of New York City. More from Gordon Chang on what's going on with Russia and China and Iran. 888-630-9625. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
Hey, it's Chris Plant. Excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com.
It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. What was that? What was that, Governor Whitmer?
Happy Kwanzaa, Michigan. I hope you're enjoying some time with family and friends to reflect on the past year and to look ahead to the next one.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, sure. I'm sure you celebrate Kwanzaa. I'm sure if we quizzed you without your notes or your press person, you would have a deep understanding of Kwanzaa and would be able to explain it to the class. What a load of pandering garbage. Truly should be offensive to people. And I do believe that the black voting bloc in America is catching on to the Democrats who've been pulling their chain for quite some time. Looking over the Happy Kwanzaa memes that are out there today, there's some real good education here. The holiday invented in 1966 by a communist anti-white professor named Karenga. Kwanzaa, his name is Karenga Kwanzaa, Maulana Karenga Kwanzaa. Nothing like naming a holiday after yourself. Nothing says I'm a giving person like naming the holiday after yourself. He created the holiday apparently to counter Christmas, and according to this meme, challenged the sanity of Jesus and declared Christianity a white religion. Does he understand? Does he understand anything about where Jesus was born? So Jesus and Christianity, a white religion. In 1970, Karenga reportedly found guilty of a heinous violent attack against a black woman. And testimony revealed that he kidnapped 2 women. The women claimed they'd been beaten with cords, batons, seared with irons while naked, and he spent 4 years in prison. So that's your Kwanzaa moment for today, the second day of Kwanzaa. Happy Kwanzaa to all that celebrate. What a pandering load of pablum from Governor Whitmer, who wants to be president. She really does. Following up on the tampons in the men's room, this is interesting because I have a sidebar to this story as well. Roy in Manassas, Virginia, is joining the Chris Plant Show. Roy, I understand. Well, welcome, sir. Tell your story.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to touch on the Montgomery County thing. These politicians got their finger on the pulse with the crime rate because I was an ex-biker, outlaw biker, 1% in Northern Virginia. And it was mandatory. It was required that we all carry tampons because they're great for bullet holes.
Well, I will tell you this. Back when I used to snow ski, the Snow Patrol used to have tampons and pads in their kits because they're very absorbent. And if you were out on the slopes, it was a great assistance if there was an injury where blood was involved. So I don't have a problem with that being used for emergencies. I just don't see a whole lot of, stabbing incidents or bullet holes in men's rooms that we need to have tampons available. It just seems to be insane to me. But thank you, Roy. I appreciate that. I have a lot more questions for Roy. We just don't have a whole lot of time to get into them. We need to get into the craziness in New York as the city's preparing for New Year's Eve. The mayor sounds worried, and I think he should be. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka is my name. And just for clarity, because people always ask, sometimes I speak so quickly, it's not Michael Pelka. It's Mike Opelka. And you can find out the stories that catch my eye at pureopelka.com. I post them up early in the morning, and then when we're on the radio, we talk about them. Michael Piercy put it out on Twitter X earlier that apparently if you have questions for the mailbag, since it's Wednesday, I will handle them. Do you really have a question for Mike Opelka? You want to know? Did I really grow up down the street from Chris? Does he own a flamethrower? Perhaps a question about golf. Well, I know little about golf, but I play it. And we'll answer any question within reason. So you can reply to that on Twitter, or if you have Michael Piercy's email, you can email him because he's going through them. He's combing through them right now as we speak. A lot to get to this morning. There are reports that the Biden administration, in fact, the president himself talking with the Emir of Qatar about a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Now, don't you think it'd be good for Israel and Hamas to have that conversation? I guess they're not talking to each other. I know Egypt floated that peace proposal over the weekend, and Hamas said, no way. We will not agree to any more hostage release until the bombing is stopped. And then Benjamin Netanyahu said, we're not stopping until all of Hamas is gone. Done, finished, toast, finito. I don't think he said it quite like that. But it's curious to me that Qatar is given this much power, that the Emir of Qatar is granted all of this access to the President of the United States. And then I start looking at the money trail. Qatar has given, donated, sent a whole bunch of money to American universities. And when you give money to universities, you then get the ability to create schools within those universities. Just look at the China institutes that are all over this country, inside our universities. What has Qatar asked of the universities it has donated to? The many universities, but the money is staggering. It's somewhere around very close to $5 billion over the past decade. That's a lot of change. And you're allowed to then make demands. Name a building, create a school. Maybe hire this professor, this person we want to head up a department. I think we need to have a little more transparency in especially all of these massive public universities to see where that money is coming from and where it's going. I would like to know. Just me speaking. Looking at social media over the break as well. Apparently, we played the Gretchen Whitmer Happy Kwanzaa greeting that she posted yesterday. The Honorable, and I'm quoting here, these are not my words, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will be speaking in Detroit February 23rd through the 25th. He'll be there on Savior's Day. I wonder if the governor will be in attendance. Thank you, Steve, sending that to us on the Twitter. Steve also sent us Councilman Will Jawando's proposal for the Menstrual Products Access and Equity Act. Wants your tax dollar to provide free menstrual products, especially in men's rooms in businesses all across his district in Maryland. It's madness, people. We have to just put our foot down and stop the madness. It's out of control. Now, we talked about Kwanzaa earlier, and I realized that as a white guy, my credibility on critiquing Kwanzaa could be considered out of place, or I wouldn't have credibility. So let's talk to the Chris Plant audience. Marcus is in Gainesville, Virginia, and joining the program. Marcus, welcome to the Chris Plant Show, sir. I'm sure you had something to say.
Thanks, Mike, for taking my call, and I did want to make a comment on Kwanzaa. I am African-American, and when Kwanzaa was first started, I looked it up, and I read exactly what you quoted a little while ago, that it was an invention by a communist. And I usually don't say that something offends me, but when the fact is that Christmas time is supposed to be about Christ and Christmas, and just to invent something for another group of people totally just blew my mind. So I've never supported it, and I never will.
I appreciate you giving clarity and credibility to it, and that's really important. And I more appreciate the fact, Marcus, that when it started, you did the research. You went and said, hey, where did this come from? And if more people would do that, I think we would stop a lot of the silliness around us from the fringes sooner. Do you find are you embedded or are you connected to the black community where you could say, hey, I don't know anybody who celebrates it? Are there people you know who do celebrate Kwanzaa?
Oh, yes, very many. I worked in the federal government. I was an air traffic controller, and I worked at the headquarters building downtown where I was in an organization called the National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees. Kwanzaa was a big thing with them, and I never really discussed my opposition to it because I would probably be not welcome to be hanging around with them anymore. But I do tell my kids when my grandkids now that they got to be careful who you follow, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're being blinded. So I have had opportunity to express my opinion, but I have held back because it is not quite the thing for me to do in my community.
Well, survival is important. And if you want to keep your job in some places, you have to watch what you say publicly because HR gets phone calls all day long. But I more appreciate the fact that you stood up and said, I'm going to do my own research and educate yourself. I think that's really important. And too many people read the headline today and don't bother reading the actual story all the way to the finish. Thank you, Marcus. Have a great new year and Merry Christmas to you and yours. There he goes. I'm looking at so many different stories they're bouncing around today. One of the ones I mentioned deals with the mayor of New York, Eric Adams. And I will tell you, I lived in New York City in Midtown Manhattan on the corner of 54th and 2nd Avenue for 20 years. 20 years on the corner of 54th and 2nd. And I saw everything in New York, from the David Dinkins era to the Rudy Giuliani era to the Michael Bloomberg era, and then to the embarrassing era of Big Bird, that bozo who thought he was going to be president as well. And then we got a guy who was a cop, a guy who came out of the NYPD. And when we saw Eric Adams kind of bubbling to the top of the list of the people who's probably going to be sworn in as the mayor, you said, okay, maybe there'll be some law and order in the city. Hopefully. Sad to say, it looks like the guy is not up for the gig. It looks like he's not ready for prime time, as they say on SNL. And there was a press conference yesterday, and this is apparently something that happens every year. The mayor of New York holds a press conference. I'm old enough to remember when the president of the United States would hold a year-end press conference where he'd actually go out and talk to the press and let them ask questions. We don't have that anymore. This is the third year in a row Joe Biden's not doing it. But the mayor of New York is doing it. And yesterday yielded some pretty interesting moments. New York City Mayor Eric Adams had kind of a strange answer when one of the reporters asked him to sum up 2023 in one word.
Mr. Mayor, we've come to the end of what was a very eventful 2023, right? So when you look at the totality of the year, if you had to describe it, and it's tough to do, in one word, what would that word be, and tell me why?
New York. This is a place where every day you wake up, you could experience everything from a plane crashing into our trade center to a person who's celebrating a new business that's open. This is a very, very complicated city, and that's why it's the greatest city on the globe.
And I'm going to correct myself. I know this is from last week. This is that weird press conference from last week. First of all, the mayor fails on two levels. He says 2 words plus when he's asked to give one word to describe 2023. Use one word, Mayor. And he goes on a 25-second litany of things that opens up with New York's such an incredible city. You could wake up and see a terror attack. He talked about planes hitting the World Trade Center. Craziness. From the same press conference, the sentence police that sit in front of the TV and say, let's wait and see Adams say something. This was weird. This was the mayor just trying to explain that 9/11 comment, I guess.
The sentence police that sit in front of the TV and say, let's wait to see Eric make one sentence that we can turn into a front page. Listen, you're going to find many of them because I'm authentic and I'm going to talk the way New Yorkers talk. Those who take my comments in good faith are not going to try to turn them around and all of a sudden say, you are trying to desecrate the 9/11.
First of all, it's not the sentence police. We're regularly known as grammar Nazis or maybe logic police. But if your first thought about the city of New York is, hey, you should come to New York because you might see a terror attack, You're not ready, sir. That was one of the weirdest cleanup attempts ever. And then we learned that Mayor Adams, in typical New York fashion, well, sometimes he gives himself the finger, just like New Yorkers.
Some people see me, I could walk down the block. Some give me the thumbs up and others give me another finger, But that's New Yorkers. I wake up in the morning at some time and look at myself and I give myself the finger.
Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I give myself the finger. Anybody worried about New York City? This is the guy who's supposed to be in charge. When Giuliani was at his peak, he really had New York under control. He had the New York cops able to make sure law and order was happening on the streets. He cleaned up the streets. He had help from a DA that was actually following the law, too, and making sure people would go to jail. But this guy, Mayor Adams, let's just go back to this one from last week's press conference. The title of this clip, "We All Crash Together."
I am the pilot, folks, and you are all passengers. Stop praying for me to crash the plane. Pray for me to land the plane, because there's no parachutes on this plane. We're all going down together.
Anybody worried? I mean, seriously. There's the mayor of New York telling the media, I'm the pilot of this plane. I'm the captain now. And you're all passengers. Stop praying for me to crash the plane. That is maybe the craziest thing out of last week's press conference. So after that, you would wonder why he would come back in front of the press. Well, he was foolish enough to do so and talked about the crisis he has with the migrants in the city.
When I talk about the devastation impact of the migrant and asylum seekers, people only think about the volume of people that are coming in. There are byproducts to this. Cut in services, like we had to postpone the police class. Looking at some of the budgetary cuts. Having a body of people, many young, who can't work. You don't even need an imagination to figure out that if you have someone 4 or 5 months and said you cannot work, you cannot feed your family, you cannot provide for yourself, what happens? Lack of opportunities, an idle mind, is the devil's workshop, as they say.
Yeah, idle mind, or I think he meant idle hands. But again, he's not good with the language. But get ready, because what's happening next is that the Democrats are going to push for the ability for everyone who's here illegally waiting for their asylum hearing, which could be 2031. They're going to be allowed to work. We're going to have to support that. That's what they're going to tell us. Otherwise, they're going to turn to crime. They're already setting it up. I've got more from Mayor Adams. There's more than just madness out of Mayor Adams. Have to take a break right now. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka sitting in for my buddy Chris Plant, wrapping up the second hour of today's program. And we'll get to your calls in just a second. We're just talking about New York City Mayor Eric Adams and his statement about idle hands are the devil's workshop. And I said, wait a minute, isn't it idle minds? And Michael Piercy did the work. And apparently idle minds are the devil's workshop and idle hands are the devil's tools or something like that. So playthings, the devil's playthings. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so I don't want to slam the mayor unjustly, although he deserves it on things because, he's out there playing the victim card when he's the mayor of a sanctuary city. One more clip from Mayor Adams, what he's really concerned about.
I challenge you, go visit other cities that these initiatives have come in place. You need to go see other cities, and you will realize my school of thinking of having a well-managed, organized city because of how diverse we are in practices This city has to be maintained, and it has to be orderly. And having vending everywhere, having prostitution, people believe in legalizing prostitution. People believe in legalizing the use of letting people to shoot drugs in front of your home, sleeping in front of your home. New York can't run that way. This city's too complicated to have an any and everything goes city.
New York's always been an anything goes city. Again, 2 decades there, in the middle of it. But you do have laws, and they can be enforced. And don't talk to me about drug use. You get a contact high just walking around Midtown these days because there's so many pot stores, most of them not licensed. It's crazy. Time to squeeze in a call here before we end the hour. Eduardo's in Tampa, Florida. Eduardo, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
It's always an honor. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas. I was just in Brazil, and I thought the young people over there are more patriotic than the young people here. I mean, they are working. They don't want to be laying on the street like some of these people that were laying on the street in downtown Brazil, in Rio. Over here, they're so ideolized in college. That's why they're out in the street with these anti-Israel protests. We need to send these people, I think, for a week to some foreign country in a third world country and have them learn a skill, learn a language, and I think they'll have a better attitude over here. What do you think, Mike?
I think part of the problem starts that you nailed it with indoctrination at our universities, but we don't teach American history anymore from the stance that America was founded on individual freedom and opportunity and liberty and free speech and all the great things about America. We are now teaching, it seems, that we should be ashamed of America. And so young people don't want to call themselves Americans. There are those that do, but it seems like the overwhelming majority are subject to the indoctrination. We'll dive into this. Thank you, Eduardo. Opelka, in for Plant on the Chris Plant Show.